representative of the town. But in the process of the last several years, we've realized that the office of the first selectman may have one purview or one view of certain things, and the police commission may have another. The first selectman's job is to run the entire town, taking into account everything, Board of Education, everything, and also budget primarily. The police commission's job is to do what's best for the police department, period. Now, sometimes the two don't align. Say, just for example, right now we have 24 officers. Say, as a police commission, we decided we need 30. Well, the first selectman's going to be like, well, we're not going to hire 6 police officers next year. And rightfully so, that's his job to do that. He might say, well, you know, we can give you 1 or whatever. But as a commission, we felt that it was our obligation to be able to present the fact to you all. We answer to you as a commission. We answer to this particular board. It's our job to present to you what we feel is best for the police department, period. Also what's best for the town. I mean, obviously we're taking into account budgetary items and whatnot, but sometimes the first selectman may have a different perspective on things, which he should, or she should, whomever it is. So it's our feeling as a board that the first selectman should be connected to the commission as an ex officio, not as a voting member. So he has the input of the first selectman, which is what everybody intended in the beginning, but the commission can vote as a commission for what we feel is best for the police department, irregardless of anything. I'm not saying we're out to spend money profligately and just do whatever, but we all feel that perhaps now that we understand, and we've been doing this for several years, that it's probably best to keep the first selectman as ex officio and have a separate board that reports to you all. We can't do anything without your approval, literally. So it really doesn't change much other than taking the first selectman out of the position of having to decide what's best for the town necessarily or best for the police department. That sounds, they're both the same, but it's kind of not.
Part of that conversation, I agree with you, everything you've said, Dan, except I feel like you're kicking me off the police commission. But listen, when we moved from resident state trooper, spending 40 years as a resident state trooper, and going to this whole new thing, there was this,
Nobody knew.
I think, an opinion that came from this board and others that we need to have a tight control on that. Obviously, I steered that, the evolution from state police to independence. That was a project that I took on wholly and brought that all the way through. And it was some opinion out there that police commissions can get out of control and they can spend lots of money. Well, of course they can't, because there's still a appropriations
We have no power
process.
of the purse.
Right, you have no purse other than what we approve of
Correct.
yours. Right. So, and I do agree now that we've established a police commission and a traffic authority and all that goes on with that. That the evolution of the police commission is such that it's now time to cut that umbilical cord and let you all be independent from this office, or my office, and report back. And of course, as ex officio, I still will have to go to the same amount of meetings.
Well,
So,
exactly.
so
and
it's,
as
and
the
I'll be
gentleman
very much in
said,
touch with
the
your
commission doesn't necessarily report to an elected official, but that's not true. We report to 7 elected officials,
Yeah.
6 elected
6.
officials. I mean, and we are all taxpayers. We're not looking to spend money just to spend money.
Right.
We all are, I mean, we're trying to find revenues that the police department can generate their own. We now currently pay for all of our cars every year based on changes we have made to road jobs. So that saves the taxpayers of this town 3 police cars a year. I mean, we're working to save the town money, and that is our primary job.
So that's terrific, and I think the answer, you might have an answer to who the police chief works for.
Police chief works for the police commission.
Correct.
And the police commission works for the board of selectmen.
Correct.
That's the way it works.
Right. So you hire
Correct.
and all that, and while the board of selectmen might approve a contract renewal or something like that because it's monetary. And
It's the
factual.
commission's job for the day, not the day-to-day, but basically the overall
Sure.
seeing
Sure.
of the police department.
The evaluations,
Correct.
and all that, just like the superintendent works for the board
Exactly.
of education. That's a good analogy. The thought is to move this to a public hearing, because that's how we change ordinances in our town. That's the process. So unless there might be some questions for Mr. Price?
The only comment I'd make is, I think this is a great idea. You look at Dave Putnam, who's the Director of Parks and Recreation, does a great job, but he reports to and is hired by the Park and Rec Commission. So,
Correct.
and here again, we just have an ex officio member there too. And I think Dan made a really good point when he was talking about the fact that, the first selectman may have a different perspective on things. And also, if he's a voting member, he could have 2 votes on a critical issue. The first selectman at some point in time could be the deciding vote in the police commission and then be deciding vote, so he gets.
On the Board of Selectmen.
And I
That's
don't
exactly
think,
correct.
I don't think that was what that's a good idea to have that.
That was an unintended consequence that nobody foresaw when we first put the commission together.
And I don't think it has been
It hasn't been a problem,
but it could be.
But we've all seen it, and we're just trying to be proactive and to
here
keep
again,
it as clean as possible.
The police commission has no authority to change ordinances. That rests here, all this other stuff. So it's not as if we're not in the loop. So I'm very comfortable with that.
No, we report to this board, period.
Right, because we appoint you. Any other questions? We can at least put a motion on the table.
Okay,
Banter.
for scheduling a public hearing. Move that notice is hereby given of a public hearing to be held by the East Lyme Board of Selectmen on November 6, 2019 at the East Lyme Town Hall at 108 Pennsylvania Avenue, Niantic, Connecticut, beginning at 7:15 p.m. to receive comments regarding the following ordinance entitled Ordinance Modifying the Ordinance Concerning the Board of Police Commissioners. Said ordinance proposes modifications to section 32.16 of the said ordinance regarding the composition of the Police Commission to read as followed. 32.16 composition. A, the Board of Police Commissioners shall consist of 7 resident electors of the town appointed by the Board of Selectmen. The terms of the members are as follows. 3 members shall be filled by appointment of 4-year terms until the first Monday of January 2022. 4 terms shall be filled by appointment on the first Monday of January 2020, which terms shall expire on the first Monday of January 2024. Members of the Board of Police Commission may serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. A member who has served 2 consecutive terms may not be reappointed to the board until 4 years have elapsed from the conclusion of his or her most recent term. C, no member of the Board of Police Commissioners shall hold any other elective or appointed office within the town. This ordinance shall take effect on January 6, 2020. Interested persons are invited to attend and be heard, dated in East Lyme, Connecticut, on the 16th day of October 2019, East Lyme Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Mr. Siri, you did a wonderful job. I know you had oral surgery today, and I know your mouth is hurting a little bit. Thank you. We could have had someone else read that.
No, it's become a point of...
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're halfway through it and struggling just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments?
Well, I'm certainly glad
Yeah.
that we're going to have the public hearing on this.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to hear the public's input. I still have some reservations. I'm not 100% behind this. The charter originally gave specifically the job to the first selectman of being the chief of police. And we made that change, creating the police commission, without changing the charter. And we had advice saying that we could do that. I was a bit uncomfortable with that because that was in the charter, and as I said, a job that was specifically assigned to the first selectman. So I still have some reservations about the decision-making by appointed people with no elected people there. They're all appointed. And there are many important decisions made regarding public safety, public welfare, which, of course, the police commission should weigh in on and should have vital input, but many of these decisions don't have anything to do with money.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are sort of routine decisions that are made without necessarily having to come to the Board of Selectmen. So, and an ex officio does not have the same stature as an elected official filling in, meaning as part of the actual commission. Ex officio oftentimes depends on being recognized by the chair to participate, can attend executive sessions, but I don't know if this commission would have executive sessions. I suppose they
Oh,
would.
they
We do.
Yes.
Sure.
So you, again,
For hiring.
you're entitled to attend as ex officio,
Yep.
but I'm going to listen very carefully to the public comment, public input, as we all do when we have a public hearing, but I still have reservations.
And I listened very carefully to you, Mrs. Hardy. You made some very good points, and so we'll have a good discussion in a couple of weeks. Thank you for your input. Any other comments? Let's move it to public hearing then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All any opposed? Any abstain? That's wonderful. Thank you. And,
Thank you.
And maybe you can come back for the public hearing just to keep us going in the loop there. Much appreciated. Thank you. We're excited to have a presentation by the Historic Cemeteries. Roseanne, you set this up. Would you like to make some introductions and talk to us about?
Well, we have two well-known local people here who don't really need an introduction, but I'll go ahead with that. Our town historian, Ms. Kuchka, and also one of the original charter members, so to speak, Mary Cotillo, is here to help with the presentation. And the Historic Cemetery Association came about basically because this is our responsibility to preserve these cemeteries. It's specifically by state charter that this falls under our jurisdiction, and we're very fortunate that these people step forward and do their best with just a very, very small contribution from the town.
Yes, indeed.
So obviously I'm going to be hitting you up for some money afterwards.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Welcome, Liz.
All right, thank you. Obviously, you know Elizabeth Hall Cookta, 154 Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm the town historian. I'm also a member of this committee, as well as secretary for the Old Stone Church Burial Ground Committee, which that burial ground comes out of the Niantic Community Church. The one thing I like to tell people when I first meet them is, you're never really dead until nobody remembers you. And that is our mission, is to keep all of these founding members and community members of the town of East Lyme alive and remembered.
Wow.
Some of you may have already heard from Roseanne. Those of you who haven't, there are 19 cemeteries in the town of East Lyme. Take one.
Can you move that microphone down just a little bit, Liz?
Yeah, we're gonna get you right into that mic. That's a good point.
Not as tall as I thought I was. This map here was made up to go with the 1935 WPA, came around and documented all of the cemeteries in the state of Connecticut without getting into details. This will show you where the 19 cemeteries are in town. There are 3 cemeteries which are still considered active cemeteries, open to the public. You're all familiar with Union Cemetery on Patagonia, and the East Lyme Flanders Cemetery up off of Boston Post Road. The Old Stone Church Burial Ground on Society Road and Riverview, again by the Niantic Community Church, does have cremation plots available, and those are the 3 largest cemeteries in town. The Historic Cemeteries has one cemetery, Plant Stamp Cemetery, which we have set aside an area there for cremation remains, which people can purchase plots there. The Old Stone Church Burial Ground actually goes back to the first inhabitants of this town setting up an ecclesiastical society in 1719. The oldest stone up there is from 1722. So this map and these cemeteries really tell the story of our town. And recently, over the last number of years, we've had many people contact us wanting to know about their relatives in town. Where are they buried? Do we have pictures of their gravestones? And I'm going to let Mary now speak and tell you a little bit about how the historic cemeteries came to be. This display we have here, we will be leaving here. Obviously, because of the rain, we're not going to take it out of here.
Don't, yeah.
So you're stuck with it for tonight and tomorrow, too.
Where does it usually get displayed, ma'am?
In Mary's living room.
In Mary's closet? Because I think it would be nice to have a display here, just temporary.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to give it to me, but it'd be nice to have it, and we can find a spot for it in the lobby. I think it'd be fascinating to study it.
My name is Mary Cotillo,
Hi, Mary.
74 Fairhaven Road in Niantic. Many of you knew my sister, Betty Murphy, who was the moving force behind organizing cemetery care in East Lyme. In 1980, we reorganized the Riverhead Cemetery, which is the large one behind what is now, or was for a while, Lulu's restaurant. It was many, many different things, but it's on Route 1. That one was in disrepair for reasons that the former association itself actually fell apart over the years. It was established in 1850, but there were already stones from the 1700s on that plot. In 1889, we began HELCA, which is the Historic East Lyme Cemeteries Association. Due to the large numbers of cemeteries in town, many in danger of being lost forever, the 1935 WPA list of cemetery records helped us to locate and to document them. As this display shows, much work has gone into photographing, documenting, clearing, and stone repair. But money is always an issue. We are very grateful to the town of East Lyme for yearly support of $1,500. Each year, we mow the 3 largest and most visited cemeteries. It costs about $300 a mowing. We try to do them at least 3 times a year so they look their best for Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day, when they're most often visited. If possible, we do more. We were left a gift by one of our members in his will that has enabled us to do some real tree removal and branch and brush cutting. Last year, we spent $3,950 on professional tree removal and have budgeted $6,950 this year for more of the same in 4 cemeteries. Eventually, we hope not to have that much in our, not have to need that much in our budget, because the major trees will be down and it should be under, at least mostly under control. Mrs. Hardy's current issues class has, in 1992, put together a booklet of epitaphs for us to use as a fundraiser, which I have brought for you tonight. Thank you. We have tried plant sales to raise money, which were not successful. We are always looking for ideas. Many civic and local groups have helped us at different times with mowing and fundraising, but there's always a need for more. We're fortunate to have some volunteers who cut and mow at different times, but we need to constantly maintain the cemeteries. Nothing stays done. It's like vacuuming your house. Just because you did it today doesn't mean it won't need it again tomorrow. We could really use some help from the town in keeping the access lanes clear. The remaining branches and trees that could be removed could be a threat to volunteers and visitors as well. At times there was, or some time back, there was a path that was cleared to the Pest Yard Cemetery, but it has pretty much disappeared. So we could really use some help from the town on those issues. Thank you.
And the access to the Pest Yard Cemetery is from the high school, so it's town property that used to have the path that we were able to get to that cemetery from. It's located behind a house, and many of these very small cemeteries are in people's backyards, and there are a few people who do not want you going into their backyard, so we have not been able to visit some of these in a very long time. The cemeteries, the smallest one is one grave, which is the Reeves Cemetery plot, which is located, Roseanne's laughing, up in the Nehantic State Forest. You have to take a dirt road path and hang a right, and you'll find her, or where he is.
It's not that easy to find.
No.
Have you been there?
Yes?
Yes.
Why did you ask a question you already knew? We all knew the answer to that.
Just wanted it on the record.
Yeah.
Some of them are really fun. There are stories I don't want to keep you too long, but my problem is I've gotten to know a lot of these people. I take one of the senior anthropology class will meet me at the Stone Church Cemetery to start their project, and I always say, all my friends welcome you, which kind of freaks them out. What I want to pass around,
Halloween.
when they get ready to leave, I point over there and I say, you see that little plot over there by that little shrub? I said, when you come back in 50 years for your class reunion, I expect you to stop and wave hi, because that's where I'm going to be.
Oh, my
These pictures here, just so you get an idea of what we have to deal with. On the top here, you'll see a leaning stone. This is what we have to watch for, because once they start to go like this, they're going to go over and end up on the ground. This picture up here is a stone on the ground. This picture was taken in 2004. We have not been able to raise enough money to repair these stones. Repairing stones can cost you anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per stone, unless you learn how to do it yourself. This picture down here is that same stone which I took yesterday, so you will be able to see what happens over a number of years. The one in the center, we are lucky because of the WPA. This is a sandstone. Sandstone is very soft. It will delaminate. We only know that this stone belonged to Thomas Lee III, and the reason we know this is his headstone. Many of the old ones have footstones as well, and this is his footstone, which has his name on it.
Wow.
There's a lot that we really would just love to do to be able to save these. We're not really asking much of the town except some support, both just being behind us in what we want to do to try to save our heritage. But also there are a few things that maybe the town public works might be able to help us with. And that would be, you know, I don't want to say a specific time like spring, because they're always out doing tree cutting then. But if we could pick some time, just clearing these lanes and taking a few branches, or at least taking the stuff to the dump, so we're not putting this brush and that in our cars and carting it there. It would just be nice to get a pickup. If anybody's interested, I know you're all kind of busy this time of year, but if you'd like to go visit some of these cemeteries at any point in time, we could set up a tour. Whether you want to go as a group, we might be able to get, you know,
What is the
van.
most interesting cemetery, Liz? If we were going to take a tour and we're going to get your best performance, which one would
well,
be the best one?
They're all.
No doubt, and no disrespect to the others, but
Only because I have personally spent most of my time in the Stone Church Cemetery, which is probably the easiest to go to in that, and it has such a wide variety of people there, and stories, and
When we go on a tour, we're going out in the woods.
but
I'm not
We're
into
not
it.
But Roseanne's idea is that we need to take you so that you could go out to Green Valley Lakes and visit Champion Cemetery out there. If you go up, we then head you up, and we can buzz by Max Mill, which is on Scott Road, another interesting one. You got to go all the way out to Upper Walnut Hill and hit Fox Farm, because that one's see, you're going to get me talking, and you shouldn't do that.
It's okay. We got time.
This will be
There-
about a 3-hour tour
Okay.
in the daylight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's Riverhead. And each one has a story.
Next Thursday.
Each one has a story to tell. But the thing is, we also have to be aware of, and the one thing is, for the Fox Farm Cemetery, there's a lane that leads to the Fox Farm Cemetery. It's paved so far back, and then you have to go on a dirt lane a little bit further. A number of years ago, the neighbor who had a driveway parallel to our driveway, and I use that loosely, kind of let his get overgrown, and he's been using ours ever since, which is fine because it keeps it plowed in the winter if we ever needed to get there. But there are things like this we have to watch out for.
Sure. It is
if we
town
s-
property, right? All these cemeteries? No.
No,
No,
no.
no, that's,
No,
I answered my own question.
many of them are private.
Yeah.
The only two that are really, I guess you'd say, owned by the town are Union of Flanders, which come under the
But
East Lyme
problem with
Cemetery
many of these
Association.
is that there's nobody left alive to tend to them.
Yeah.
There aren't any descendants to tend to them. And so there's no money coming in to keep
Mhm.
these up because there are no descendants left, or at least none in the area.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a big
So
problem.
it's private, someone owns it, or an association owns it, or a defunct church or something, right? Or, and some of them are private property, you mentioned, in someone's
Yes.
backyard, backwoods.
Right. Right.
And they're not responsible for caretaking of that. The town is still, the Board of Selectmen through you.
No,
Or you through us.
we found, even off of Cecil Lane, there's one off of Cecil Lane, which back in the 50s and 60s, there were still 8 or 9 stones that stood up there. And when we went back, well, a few years ago, 20 years ago, the stones are all gone. Some
They're
of them
gone.
are broken down and that.
They're
Yeah.
gone, and
And-
sometimes people actually
Take
come
them.
and build
Yeah.
on the property and want those removed, which is why when we got the digital filming
Right.
capability downstairs,
Yeah.
that we had all of these
Document these.
documented
Wow.
and filmed, so that they don't disappear like the stone walls.
So we'll work on a tour.
on a
Absolutely,
tour.
I'm fascinated by it. I know my fellow selectmen are. There's no question
I'm-
about that.
I'm sure we could get something together, and, it might take a couple hours, only because to get from here to Fox Farm is,
Yeah,
the other end
yeah.
of town.
Well, it'll depend on who's driving.
We'll have Roseanne drive,
Yep.
and we'll get there quick.
But
Too many.
we really would like you to see some of these and understand what challenges we are facing, and really what it is as part of our town history.
We have a great working relationship with many other projects. I'll commit to, Public Works is always very busy, and we've
Oh,
cut the number of
this is
people down,
just-
but there's no question about it. We should, especially in the town properties, we should be out there helping you. But in some of these other spots where it might be remote and all you need is some branches moved or some trimming, by all means, Public Works should be stepping out. Well, not they should be, but we should direct them to help you.
At
And,
least if we could get some help.
no question about it. I guarantee you we'll get you that. And let's have a conversation offline and when that would be appropriate. Maybe a spring and a fall cleanup every year, if nothing else.
That
No
would-
question.
that would be absolutely
Couple
wonderful.
guys, a day of manpower for a couple guys is not going to crush us. That for sure. But I'd like one more. I have one more question, and then I don't want to dominate, but. You must know about other cemetery organizations such as yours throughout the state. Is there other cemetery associations that are raising money through other means that we could support you with, or is there something out there? What's your wish
It's-
list? What's
it's-
on top of the wish list?
It's really tough. Raising
Yeah,
money,
of
especially
course
for
it is.
cemeteries, is tough. And we've tried, 2 or 3 different ways to do it, and some work, some don't. Everybody's struggling just to have money. Our wish list is we would like to have enough monies available to continue with, like, the trees and that. The repair of stones, of course, is
So expensive.
everybody's dream is getting repaired. But we have found things have developed over the last number of years compared to what they were 50, 75 years ago in repairing stones. The methods to do it are a lot different. So we've been working with Waterford with their historic cemeteries and that. They've been trying to repair some stones over there. So there is a possibility